Okay, now let's talk about your guitar style.
Okay.
When you record a solo, do you improvise or do you write it?
No, I never write it. Basically what I do is, and I learned this from Mike Varney, because when I did my very first album, I sent my tape to him, and he called me the very next day, because I FedExed it to him. He called me right away and said, "Do you want a record deal?" I said, "Yeah, of course." So I thought that he loved everything that I did, but apparently he, was a real producer and he could hear potential. So when I got out there, we recorded the album very much like most people do. Basic tracks first, drums, bass, then the rhythm guitars, then the melodies, and then the last thing was the solos. So when I sat down to play the very first solo that we recorded, I had memorized what I recorded on the demo. So I started playing it, and he stopped the tape, stops it, and he says, I said, why did you do that? He said, "I don't really like that solo." And I was like, "Really? Wow." So I thought to myself, what am I going to do? I don't, now what do I do? So he just basically said, just play whatever comes to mind, just see what happens. And it was very scary, very intimidating situation, but in the end, it was a much better approach because we ended up capturing moments of spontaneity. Everything was spontaneous, even though a lot of times I would only get, 20 seconds or 30 seconds into it until I ran out of ideas or made a mistake. But then we would come in right after that, and that's how the solos got put together. So basically, when you hear my solo, and so ever since then I've done it that way. I just hit the record button and go. And whatever happens, happens. And if I like it, I keep it. If I don't like it, I do it again. And if I get sometimes once in a while I'll get lucky and get a whole solo. But usually the solo ends up being in parts, and I go until I make a mistake or until I run out of ideas, and then I punch in at that point and keep going. But everything is always spontaneous, everything. So I never work at anything.
That's cool. And do you still take time to improve your skills, work on your technique? So the basic question is, what do you usually do when you grab a guitar? Do you work? Do you improvise? Do you compose? A little bit of three?
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time working on technique, because I honestly, the way that I see myself is as an artist. The main thing for me is being involved in a creative process. So if I'm in the process of creating something, that's when I feel best. And so guitar is really just a tool that I happen to be most comfortable with. So it's not like I think of myself as Greg Howe, the guitarist, who happens to put some songs together as an excuse to play. It's more like I'm a creative artist, and I tend to probably excel at the guitar, so I'll use that. But when I sit down with a guitar, I generally just try to play things that feel cool. Sometimes, once in a while I'll detect that something's falling, something's not up to par, so I'll work on that a little bit. But it's tough these days because the majority of time, as your career gets more popular, obviously you can spend less time with your guitar. So most of my time is spent on the phone or on the computer typing emails. So if I can just sneak my guitar in whenever I can, I just pick it up and try to work on some ideas, or maybe I'll stumble across a lick or I'll stumble across something, but I don't really dedicate a regimented curriculum of practice. It's not practical these days.
Okay, can you show us what you do when you want to warm up?
Basically, I do a lot of bending, a lot of stuff like that. I work a lot of this because these two fingers seem to be the least coordinated, but at least. So a lot of times I'll just sit around and go like, or I'll try to do the classical kind of Ingve-esque, all those kind of things where work up the scale or down the scale. Those kind of things, and those things kind of warm me up, because anything that requires it, sometimes I'll just do things like those kind of things, but for the most part I just try to keep my hands on the fretboard as often as possible. Nothing outrageous really. There's no warm-up curriculum that I have, although I probably should.
And when you improvise, do you have favorite modes or scales you like to stick with?
I don't have favorite ones, but I tend to gravitate towards pretty basic scale shapes, or scale tonalities. So I mean, for the most part, if I'm soloing over a minor chord, generally I'm sort of in the Dorian mode. If I'm soloing over a major chord, generally I'm in the Lydian mode. But sometimes I'll sneak some altered things in there, and sometimes I'll play like, I'll play things like melodic minor, or over a minor chord. So instead of it might be that kind of thing, right? So for the most part, my stuff is pretty basic. I just try to be as creative within it as possible.
Okay. And do you have, it's a guitarist question, do you have favorite licks, favorite techniques that you can't help using?
Or yeah, I mean, there's the things that I probably am known for, like a lot of the hammer-on from nowhere stuff. So like a lot of stuff that's like or those things. A lot of the two-handed stuff that's where you're playing like hammer, tap, pull. I've been doing that since my first album. Things like that. Let's see, what else do I do? I mean, there are just certain things that a lot of the slide vibrato. And some of the two-handed, like, linear ideas that are like, which are probably easier to hear on an amplifier, but, stuff like that. I don't know. Anybody who knows my style knows that there are just certain things that I tend to gravitate towards. So I try not to think too much about it. So
it's the thing that make your style, but you are aware of it, so it's good.
Right, I'm aware of certain things, but at the same time, I'm trying not to think about them.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
What is the most recent thing you learned? Is it a whole piece of something, or a lick, or?
Wow, the guitar. I don't know that I've learned much recently.
Or maybe it's something not guitar related, like a language or something else.
Oh, just anything. Well, I've learned a lot about Italian food over this tour. We spent a lot of time in Italy, so
like Coppa here.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that a little more.
Okay. So we were about to ask you about to improvise something for us to end the interview, but I don't know if
improvise something.
Yeah, just for us and the readers, of course.
Improvise, like in what sense? Just play a lick?
I don't know, a little theme or something, just for us.
Oh, you guys caught me on the spot. I would have no idea what to do.
I know.
I usually just noodle away on the guitar. I don't really. I could play like a delicacy. That's the whole hammer-on from nowhere thing. Those kinds of things, but for the most part, I just wail away on scales, stuff like that.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
a lot, Greg.
All right.